I want to talk to you today about something incredibly important. It's about drawing boundaries and creating sacred spaces in your life. It's about not letting anybody or anything intrude on what truly matters most. We live in an age of distraction, of constant connectivity. Our phones buzz incessantly with texts, calls, app notifications. Our inboxes are flooded with emails. Our social media feeds scroll endlessly with updates from around the world. We are more plugged in than any humans before us. And you know what? A lot of that technology is brilliant. The ability to communicate instantly across vast distances is a modern miracle. Having the world's information at our fingertips via the internet is an invaluable resource. I'm not here to denounce technology altogether, but I'm here to urge you to be the masters of your technology, not its slaves. Because if you aren't careful, all of those remarkable communication tools can become a flood of interruptions and distractions that wash away your productivity, your peace of mind, and most tragically, your precious personal relationships. When you're at work, focused on an important project or serving a client, let all your communication systems serve you. Use them as powerful aids to enhance your efforts. But the moment you step away from work, you need to shut them off or at least set them to silent mode. Don't let anybody intrude when it's time to be present with your family. No phone calls, no text messages, no pings from apps or social media. Those can all wait. When you're having dinner together, visiting, or just hanging out, nothing is more important than giving your full attention to your loved ones. Your family time is sacrosanct. It's holy ground that you must vigilantly protect from the encroachment of the outside world and its incessant demands on your time and mind. Don't allow even the tiniest crack for that bombardment to start slipping through. Because if you do, it's like opening the door and letting an invading army of distraction, first a text here, then an email notification there. Before long, everybody's only half present, constantly glancing at and tapping on their screens rather than really seeing and connecting with each other. You've got to create boundaries and spaces that are 100% free from intrusion. Maybe it's not just family dinners, but a no screens rule from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. every night so you can spend quality time together. Or perhaps certain rooms or spaces in your home are designated as sacred zones where no devices are allowed. Whatever lines you need to draw them boldly and enforce them rigorously. Be willing to unplug, to disconnect from the matrix, even if it's just for a little while each day. Those inviolable spaces are not only essential for nurturing your most important relationships, but for your own mental, emotional, and spiritual renewal. See, we are human beings, not human doings. Our worth and our core essence isn't defined by our productivity, but by simply being present, being attuned to ourselves and those around us. When we're constantly stuck in doing mode, jumping from task to task, screen to screen, input to input, we lose touch with that fundamental ground of being. You got to purposefully create little islands of being throughout your day and week. Sanctuaries where the doing stops and you can simply be with your loved ones, be with yourself, be with your thoughts, be with the source of your spiritual sustenance, whatever that may be for you. In those sacred spaces, remove anything that can intrude or pull you back into the realm of constant doing. For most of us today, that means turning off or putting away phones, tablets, laptops, TVs, anything with a screen or a ringer. Not easy, I know. We become neurologically and psychologically hooked on that. The steady dopamine drip feed of new messages, notifications, and inputs. Our devices have been carefully designed to make us crave that constant stimulation like a drug. Breaking free from that craving for constant stimulation. An intrusion takes discipline. You're going to feel that itch, that urge to just quickly check your phone or your email. You're going to have to resist it again until you retrain your mind. It will be uncomfortable at first. You may even feel a bit of panic or anxiety when you forcibly remove yourself from the matrix. That's just your brain protesting, being cut off from its steady drip feed of information and connection. But if you can push through that uneasy transition period, you'll find an oasis of calm and presence on the other side. A stillness in which you can truly think deeply, tap into your creativity, and be fully immersed in the human connections and moments that most deserve your attention. You'll start to savor the simple joys of a conversation undisturbed by electronic interference, of locking eyes with your spouse or child without having to dodge a flashing screen vying for your focus, of letting your mind wander and make new connections, undistracted by a constant bombardment of other people's thoughts and ideas. This isn't about living life unplugged all the time. That's neither possible nor desirable in the modern world. It's about striking a wise balance, harnessing the awesome powers of technology and communication when appropriate, but also zealously guarding your freedom to unplug and go off the grid. To have those sacred zones of distraction-free presence and connection with your loved ones and with yourself. To mix periods of intense work and immersion in the world of info flow with equally intense periods of disengaging from that torrent, of simply being rather than constantly doing. Because here's a hard truth. That torrent of information and stimulation will never stop. It will only increase in velocity and volume year after year. New apps, new platforms, new modes of connectedness will continually emerge, each clamoring for a piece of your most precious resources, your time and attention, if you don't erect bulwarks against it. Rituals, routines, and inviolable rules around when and where the pipeline gets shut off. You'll eventually be swept away, overwhelmed, your time and mind scattered into a million little fragmented bites, running in a million different directions, never fully present anywhere. Don't let that happen. Don't let the world's endless feed of intrusions infiltrate and occupy the spaces that should be fortresses of your presence, your focus, your quality time with those you love most. Draw firm boundaries and defend them fiercely. Because if you don't program your own life to create sanctuaries from the world's bombardment, that bombardment will program your life by default. It will hijack your time, your attention, your whole existence. Don't let it. Don't let the world's cacophony of distractions drown out the voices and moments that should mean everything to you. When it's family dinner time, shut it all off. No ringers, no vibrations, no screen. Just you and your loved ones being fully present with each other, even if just for an hour or two. It's when it's date night or family night. Enforce a universal no devices rule. Put them all away out of sight and out of mind. Recapture what it feels like to engage in unbroken, uninterrupted quality time and eye contact with the people who mean most. Or perhaps you set aside regular stretches of hours as solitary stillness periods. Maybe it's from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. every night, or a good chunk of the weekend. Whatever it is, nothing cloud-connected is allowed to intrude. You go off the grid completely for a restored dip into quietude and uninterrupted thinking. During those times, you may read, you may write, you may meditate or pray, or simply sit and gaze out the window. You're engaged in active non-doing, immersed in the richness of your own being rather than frenetically doing at the behest of constant external stimuli. You have to be proactive about creating these sanctuaries in your life. You can't just wait for a break in the barrage. You have to forcefully seize it. Intentionally cordon off areas and schedules that are free from encroachment. It's because, let me tell you, if you just let it happen organically based on our cultural norms and the profit-driven motives of big tech companies, your life will become one long unbroken, frenetic stream of information overload and incessant intrusions. There will be no island stays of peace and presence. The forces of distraction and fragmentation are powerful. They have billions upon billions of dollars invested in developing ever more psychologically irresistible enticements to keep you hooked, to keep intruding on your time and conscious space, relentlessly shattering your attention and focus into more and more granular shards. It's not just the tech giants either. It's everything, advertising, entertainment, news media. It all operates on the same principle of manufacturing a million daily ambient intrusions into your sphere of peace through push notifications and Pavlovian pings competing for your eyeballs. You must resist. You simply must learn to just tune it all out sometimes. To shut it off or at least quarantine it outside the purified zones you create for activities and occasions that demand your whole, undivided, undistracted self. Those are the areas where you need to be. Cloaked in a profound auditory and visual silence, where no screens flicker in the corner of your eye, no dings or vibrations shatter and bifurcate your attention even for an instant. Just the faces of those across from you, the pages of the book before you, or the uninterrupted workings of your own inner voice. It's difficult, no question. Our brains had been rewired over decades of increasingly frenzied connectedness and consumption of information. We've been conditioned to constantly seek fresh bursts of stimulation, no matter how shallow, to have our focus perpetually divided and skipping like a stone across water. However, you must unlearn those habits, at least occasionally, if you want to retain your full faculties, your ability to still yourself and direct deep, penetrating attention, to think complex thoughts, grapple with profound ideas and concepts, to retain presence. You see, friends, we have presence as the staff of life. It's what elevates us from being mere robots reacting to fully conscious human beings inhabiting each lived moment with intention and authenticity. A lack of presence makes us shallow. Shards of identity dispersed and ricocheted by ever-intensifying forces of distraction and fragmentation. Don't let your sense of presence of whole body, angered being eroded away completely. Starve it a sustenance of undivided attention, and it will atrophy and wither within you until one day you'll find yourself hopelessly splintered and scattered. It's never fully with anyone or anything, but perpetually rocking between a trillion inputs. This presence, true presence, is a muscle. One you have to repeatedly exercise by disengaging from the frenetic streams that deprive it of oxygen. You need to create those little refugees of disconnectedness, so shutting it all off. The world's myriad attempts at intrusion. It's when you do. At first it may feel awkward, disorienting even. You'll be forcibly withdrawn from the info streams, constant hits of stimulation, and find yourself adrift without that steady dopamine drip feed. It may make you antsy and anxious, that void of silence and stillness. You may instinctively reach to refill it with some fresh distraction, a scroll through social feeds or slouch into more passive consumption of entertainment. Resist those urges, my friends. Sit with the discomfort for a while. Reacquaint yourself with the feeling of existing in quietude, of being absorbed and attendant only to the small occurrences unfolding around you in the present. It's the chirping of birds, the dance of sunlight through a window, the flavors and textures of a meal chewed slowly and savored, rather than partly attended to inherent impatience. You are relearning the subtler pleasures and benefits of being overdoing, of simply existing without endless undertow tugs from external demands and inputs. When you start to rediscover the still points in your daily existence, free from the ricochets of constant intrusion, you'll feel it happening. A profound settle will begin taking hold within you. The scattered fragments of your awareness will start knitting back together into a cohesive whole. From this recaptured ground of unified presence, all sorts of profoundly positive offshoots will begin to emerge and blossom in your life. For one, you'll find your self-knowledge deepening. With the incessant external stimulation turned off, you can at last hear the quieter vibrations of your own inner voice more clearly. Your unconscious fears, desires, beliefs, and motivations that normally get drowned out will bubble up into the silent spaces you've created. You'll start having unexpected glimpses of core truths about who you really are beneath all the superficial layers of identity we construct from outside influences. That fundamental essence of you that often gets obscured and neglected amidst the clamor of a distraction-saturated world. These moments of profound self-illumination don't happen when you're perpetually deafened by the outside world screams for your attention. They only arise from the womb of silence, of going inward and giving your soul's whispers permission to speak. With this deepening self-knowledge will come a greater sense of emotional resilience as well. Because when you're constantly pinballing between ubiquitous inputs and stimuli without any counterbalancing pauses, you're invariably going to be plagued by emotional turbulence. Late anger and anxiety from having your attention constantly fractured. Restlessness and dissatisfaction from the relentless Pavlovian conditioning to crave fresh digital snacks every few minutes through dings and vibrations. Just on a deeper level, a subtle but corrosive undercurrent of emptiness as you burn through your finite stores of presence at a rapidly accelerating pace. But when you create restorative dead spaces free from those assaults on your mental and spiritual bandwidth, you'll find your emotions naturally becoming more equilibrated, more stable and less whipsawing to every new intrusive provocation. You'll experience oases of blissful level-headedness, contentment, and spaciousness of being that you'd nearly forgotten were possible. It's that recaptured centeredness will also enhance your focus. And mental clarity, with the endless stream of distractions dammed, at least for portions of your day, your thoughts and attention will stop scattering so frenetically. You'll be able to engage in higher order cognitive work with more depth, nuance, and stamina, complex problem solving, synthesizing disparate ideas, incubating original insights. All of these loftier mental capacities demand protracted periods of unbroken concentration, and they simply can't be exercised when you're permitting a perpetual pandemonium of digital noise to shatter your attention into a million pieces every few minutes. By creating scheduled seas of splendid quiet, free from the world's insistent intrusions, you'll rediscover what it means to plumb the full depths of your intellectual powers, to march your focus in unified ranks toward apprehending richer veins of truth, rather than scattering it into guerrilla skirmishes with each new ping and vibration. Beyond even the lofty benefits to your self-knowledge, emotional equilibrium, and cognitive powers, regularly disengaging from the matrix of connectedness will bolster your overall sense of presence as well. Sing of being wholly immersed and attendant to the precious few humans and moments that deserve your absolute fealty. It's because presence is the quintessential act of love. The greatest gift you can offer to your spouse, your children, or any cherished relation. Not some fleeting, partial, or divided attention as you keep one psychic foot stuck in the quicksand of digital demand, but your completely undistracted, unbroken presence. if only for an appointed number of hours each day or week. Can you imagine how healing, how transcendent it would feel to bask in the sublime presence of a loved one utterly unplugged from all external stimuli, not having to compete with a single ringing, buzzing notification or any subterranean impulse in them to fracture off and stray digitally. It's to look across the dinner table or living room or pillow and meet eyes utterly unrifled by the myriad forces constantly vying to divert their gaze elsewhere. Souls naked and sincerely attending to that solitary connection, rather than streaking off in a million different directions through electroosmosis. That is the profound intimacy we're being starved of more and more each year. The exquisitely needled art of being fully present with our most cherished few is unwinding in the same degree to which we let the world's clamors erode our sanctuaries of quietude. So guard those sanctuaries fiercely, but put flaming swords at the perimeters to ensure nothing can intrude upon them, because within those purified spheres is where the highest qualities of our humanity are cultivated. Your self-awareness, our insights, our stable centeredness, our depth of focus and contemplation, and most of all, our unshakable presence, our ability to offer those we love the wholehearted gift of our undivided selves, if only for a little while each day, to let them bathe in the full splendor of our conscious, unhijacked attention, which is the ultimate salve for the alienation of modern existence. So be unapologetic and ceaseless in creating and defending those zones of peace and attunement in your life. Patrol the borders with vigilance and turn away any forces that would try to encroach upon them. You are reclaiming sovereignty, establishing your own rules about when you'll participate in the world's blaring inputs and when you'll opt out in favor of the sanctity of quietude. You are enforcing your right to simply be undisturbed in the serene chambers of your inner world and most cherished bonds, to withdraw there as needed to replenish your presence from the world's perpetual attempts to dehydrate it. Weave these refuges of repose throughout your schedule. Make them non-negotiable. Perhaps it's the ritual of a 100-plug family dinner each night, no matter what's going on in the outside world, or a daily 2-hour window where not a single screen or notification is permitted to activate, or a full daily Sabbath from sunrise to sundown where the ecosystem of intrusion goes into total blackout mode. Whatever the scheduling and parameters are that make sense for you and your loved ones, treat them as utterly sacrosanct and inviolable. Be militantly protective of those penciled pauses and intermissions from the world's frantic static of activity and stimuli. They are the portals to presence, the gateways back to wholeness and solidity of selfhood, relationships, and conscious bandwidth. Granted, in our era, the forces pitted against this type of intentional unplugging and undividedness are potent. We've been conditioned like rats to keep frantically working the lever for more digital rewards and inputs. Billion-dollar companies devote their full genius to synthesizing more psychologically compelling lures toward fragmentation. So you're going to have to get creatively ruthless in hardening your defenses against them, setting ultra-strict phone rules that prevent ambushes of distraction, maybe even periodically retreating to isolated physical bunkers, like a cabin in the woods where there's no chance for interruption whatsoever. Go to whatever lengths are necessary to ensure there's always a castle keep within the terrain of your life that is 100 the armies of encroachment. No devices, no connectivity, absolute refuge from any exterior erosion of your purpose, stillness, and presence. It's because that is the key to preserving and restoring your most fundamental humanity. Your ability to withdraw from the world's increasingly hyperkinetic tumult and have anchoring points of deep interiority and unbroken presence with the people and moments that matter most. It's this discipline of creating and guarding distraction. Free zones will increasingly be what separates those who remain rooted in their selfhood with each passing year, versus those who become irreparably frayed, scattered, and entropized by the escalating storms of techno-intrusions. You'll simply have to decide which group's trajectory you want to opt into, that of the frantic, perpetually divided and dissipated, or that of those retaining islands of tranquility amidst the surrounding ruckus, solid, still anchors of wholeness focus, and immersive presence. The choice is yours to make. But I urge you not to sleep on it, because I assure you the encroaching tides intruding on your consciousness are only going to intensify the longer you wait. So get proactive. Get zealous about drawing lines. Audit the inputs and stimuli you're allowing into your field of awareness and to metastasize there unchecked. Then set about strategically quarantining and shutting many of them out through rituals and routines that create impregnable zones of a coward silence.